Good evening. Happy Wednesday, midweek. Greetings and welcome to the chat first. I see Junior and Prince Bun there. Blessings to you. Also, greetings to the 12 tribes of the scattered nation of the children of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the planet Earth through prophecy, by oppression and slavery. Greetings. Greetings to those that are not of the 12 tribes, but as it were, those that are strangers among us, that want to serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob with the 12 tribes and be included and grafted into that olive tree, which is the nation of Israel. Greetings. Greetings to those that are not of any particular religion, but are seeking for truth, seeking for righteousness, and are disillusioned with the organized religions of the world. Greetings. Blessings upon those that are working in the healthcare field, that are trying on a daily basis to save lives, to comfort those that are sick, to help those that can't help themselves, whether they be home attendants, certified nurses, aides, nurses, licensed practical nurses, nursing assistants, physician's assistants, and then finally physicians. Blessings upon all of them that are doing these things for the good of the human beings that they are trying to serve. Blessings also upon those people that pick up garbage for us to make our places clean. When your place is clean, don't take it for granted. There are places all over the planet where garbage is piled up and rats, roaches, and other diseases are multiplying because nobody picks up the garbage. So those that pick up garbage for us, if your place is clean, blessings upon them. Also, blessings upon those that make deliveries for us. Unsung heroes, men and women that deliver goods, services, food to supermarkets for us, drugstores, deliver food for us in vans, deliver important papers for us that we take for granted. Blessings upon them. Blessings also, double blessings on those that are trying to deliver men and women, boys and girls, babies, infants even, from the clutches of human trafficking, sex slave operations. Just today, I heard about 90 people that were saved, delivered in Houston, Texas. Nobody in the neighborhood realized that this regular looking house in a regular looking middle class neighborhood was a house that was a point of which they held captives for transport. Somebody gave a tip. The police came by. They found 90 people in there. They were men and women. There were no children there, but there were men and women that had been kidnapped and were headed to who knows where until the police came and found them. So blessings on those that help people escape these perverts. Curses upon those that support these industries, especially the child pornography industry and the pornography industry, when it's not consenting adults, but it's people that have been raped and tortured and brought into that life to become sex slaves. Curses on those that support those industries. Finally, blessings on those that are seeking to help the homeless. 500,000 men, women, and children in the United States alone that tonight, on Wednesday night, May 5th, do not have a roof over their head, do not know where they're going to sleep, whether they're going to be in a box, on a sidewalk, on a park bench, whether it's going to be in a tent or in a car. They have no idea. And their lives are in danger, and they're exposed to the elements. Blessings on those that are seeking to help such ones, not only in the United States of America, but all around the world. Millions of people are in this situation. We are so happy that in the kingdom of Yah, this will never exist again. Blessings upon the very ones that are suffering these things, for theirs is the kingdom. So tonight, I wanted to discuss another example of media mind control. I said an example of media mind control. Ever since there's been a newspaper to be written or a magazine and especially since the motion picture came into existence in the video. Mediums like this is called medium because it's a means of communication, have been used to control the minds of people that read and listen and watch these things. The Bible shows us very clearly in Revelation chapter 12. Revelation chapter 12. I'm going to start at verse 9 and read down to verse 17 of Revelation chapter 12, from verse 9 to verse 17. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength in the kingdom of our Most High, in the power of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our Most High day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives unto the death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, times, and half a time from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman. And the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Yahweh, and have the testimony of Messiah, Yahushua. We can see here, the Bible says that he is the accuser of the brethren. He is accusing the brethren before the Father, but he was cast down. They mentioned the blood of the Lamb. At the cross, the devil was cast down so that he could never come back to the third heaven after the cross. When Messiah said it is finished, that was part of it. No more access to the third heaven for Satan. Being that he's limited now to the space of the atmosphere of the planet Earth, he is extremely angry. And this is what happens when people are greedy and power hungry. We can see that in human beings. Well, it originates with their father, the devil. He gets extremely angry. And he's a liar and a murderer. So he goes about seeking who he can destroy and how he can manipulate, how he can control minds. And so the Bible says he was cast out, but the people, the remnant of the woman. Who's the woman? Well, we know the woman is Israel, but let's look back where the woman was first mentioned. Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3. Genesis 3 and verse, let's see. Genesis 3 and verse 14. Well, let me start at verse 12. And I'm going to read from verse 12, between 12 and down to 15. Actually, down to 16. Genesis chapter 3 from verse 12 to 16. And the man said, the woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. And Yahweh Most High said unto the woman, what is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. And Yahweh Most High said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. And it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. And unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thine husband, and he shall rule over thee. So the woman here was Eve, but the devil that he was talking to in the serpent was talking about the woman, which we see in Revelation chapter 12 as the nation of Israel. And the child, the seed, is Messiah. So he said, I'm going to put a difference between your seed and Messiah's seed. And remember what it said in Revelation chapter 12, verse 17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. The remnant, the seed, man child being Messiah, the remnant is what's left of Messiah and of his sacrifice. Okay, that's us at the end. Notice also, we overcame the devil by the blood of the Lamb. First of all, it was two parts. Blood of the Lamb, word of our testimony. What does that mean? Blood of the Lamb is obvious. Messiah's death for sin, but it was more than that. Christians will stop there. Let's take it the way it's supposed to go. The death of Messiah for sin gave us, his chosen, access to the Father's righteousness. Prior to that, we did not have access to the perfect righteousness of the Father in that way. Prior to that, the only way we could get access to the Father, and it was only Israel that could do it, that was through the sacrifices of the animals of the law. That when the Bible talks about the law, most of the time, that's what it's talking about. The sacrifice of the animals, of the ceremony of the law that was given to Moses, that was the access we had to the Father's righteousness. But through Messiah now, we have direct access to the Father's righteousness from Messiah's blood. That gives us the Spirit of the Father upon us to cover us in his own perfect righteousness. And we know this is the Bible definition of the gospel, bearing witness that the Father's righteousness is revealed, which brings to the second part. They overcame the devil by the blood of the Lamb, which gives them the Father's righteousness, and the word of their testimony, bearing witness of the Father's righteousness. Okay? Bearing witness of the Father's spirit of righteousness. And that, brethren, is how we overcome the enemy. Now, the enemy's angry with us because when we receive the Father's righteousness, what it does is it causes us to feel sorry for our sin. It brings us repentance. It causes us to want to be obedient to the Father. That's the natural reaction of a person that received Father's righteousness. What happens in this world, though, unfortunately, people get confused. Some people go to a church and they feel that righteousness. They really repented of their sin. And they come to the church and they're saying, oh, man, I want to do what's right. And they're telling them there's no law. So then the fire goes out. And that's what happens in Christianity. You get people that are on fire initially. Maybe you've experienced that. You come to Christ, you raise your hand, or you join there, and you're initially on fire because what's going on within is there's that spirit that you've been touched with from the Father. But then when you come into the church and they tell you there's no law, that fire eventually goes out. That's why you only see new believers with that fire. You don't see the older people with that fire because it's going out. And even in places where there's a Sabbath-keeping congregation, they're dependent on their church, not on the Father's righteousness anymore. And just like that also, the fire goes out. But when you have an understanding that it's not about a denomination, a church, or an organized religion, it's about a scattered nation of Israel and the Holy Father of Israel, Yahweh, and you could go directly to him and you can receive his spirit of righteousness, you remain in that fire, on fire, excited for your Most High, because it's not you. It's the spirit that the Father's given you on a daily basis that makes you change. Okay, so he covers us in that perfection. He causes us to be declared righteous, not because we're righteous within, but because his righteousness is covering us. And then from that point, he begins to work within us to change us permanently, to make us into his image. And that's why the Father told the devil, I'm going to put enmity between your seed, Satan, and Messiah seed, Satan, and Messiah, Yahweh. And now the enmity is the Father's righteousness. Those with Satan will not receive it. Those with Messiah must have received it if they're with him. You cannot, matter of fact, take a look at this, Romans chapter 8, Romans chapter 8, one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. One of my favorite books in the Bible is the book of Romans. I ain't gonna front. Romans is a powerful gospel book, man. Powerful, classic. Romans chapter 8, beginning at verse 1. Romans 8, beginning at verse 1. And I'm going to go from verse 1. I'm going to go from verse 1 down to verse 10. Romans chapter 8 from verse 1 down to verse 10. Notice what it says. There is now, therefore, no condemnation to them which are in Messiah Yahushua, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. Notice he starts off saying there's no condemnation. He says, therefore. Why does he say now, therefore? Because it's a continuation of what was written in chapter 7. Most people, again, in Christianity, they break it up and make each chapter like an island unto itself. This is a letter. And so you have to understand it's flowing like a letter. And so what he's saying here in what's called chapter 8 is actually a continuation of what he said in chapter 7. So what he said in chapter 7 is he said in verse 22, 23, and 24, he says, for I delight in the law of Yah after the inward man, but I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin. That's condemnation, the law of sin, which is in my members. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? I thank the Most High through Messiah Yahushua, our master. So then with my mind, I serve the law of Yah, but with my flesh, the law of sin. So he's condemned in his flesh because he has no spiritual strength to obey the Father. He has no spiritual strength in himself to overcome the law of sin that he's born into. That's the human nature that all of us are born into. But then he continues, there is therefore now no condemnation. In other words, the law of sin is overcome. Why? Let's continue reading. There's therefore now no condemnation to them who walk not in Messiah Yahushua, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. What Spirit? That is the Spirit of the Father's perfect righteousness. Okay, you're walking in that Spirit, you're going to overcome the law of sin that's within you. Why? Because there's another Spirit dwelling within you. It's another Spirit that you're allowing, and that's important. You're choosing to allow, and as we're going to talk about this, we're talking about mind control tonight. You're choosing to allow the Father's Spirit to take possession of you. One spirit or another is going to take possession of you. That's for sure. Is it going to be the Father's Spirit, or is it going to be the devil working in conjunction with your human spirit? That's what you're going to find out. Okay, so let's continue. For the law of the Spirit of life in Messiah Yahushua hath made me free from the law of sin and death. See, so I've heard some people, matter of fact, there was this so-called Jew for Jesus in New York tried to tell me that the 10 Commandments were the law of sin and death. What kind of sense does that make? So the Father's going to meet with this chosen people, Israel, on Mount Sinai and thunder his law and put it on 2 tables of stone and say, it's the law of sin and death. Here you go, my nation. Here's the law of sin and death for you. Does that make any sense? Yet that's what Christianity teaches. Okay, that's what they teach. But the truth is, the law of sin and death is the natural person. That's your nature. That's the human nature. That's the law that Paul said dwells within my members that wars against the law of Yah. Okay, but here he's saying the law of the Spirit of life made me free from the law of sin and death. Yah's perfect righteousness, being in harmony with his law, being in harmony with the covenant, being in harmony with truth. It frees us. As the Messiah said, ye shall know the truth. And the truth shall make you free. Verse 3, for what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, Yah sending his own son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin condemned sin in the flesh. Watch verse 4. That the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. See, brethren, one thing we need to understand very clearly. We're in a spiritual war. We're talking about mind control. Mind control doesn't happen with somebody like in the movie Get Out, where they cut your head open and they put another brain in your head. Mind control happens by a spiritual means. It's called a media, which is like a medium, right? So when you think about it like that, in terms of it being a medium, you understand there's a spiritual thing going on. Okay? There's a spiritual thing going on. So the law of Father's perfect righteousness set us free from the law of mind control, from the law of sin and death, from the law of our human nature. That's why the apostle Kepha, who was the apostle to the Israelites, he said that we should be partakers of a divine nature. Partakers of a divine nature. Okay? Partake. What is that saying? When you partake in something, you sharing in it, right? Somebody say, come partake of some food with us. Partake of our fellowship. You're sharing in it. It's not yours before that. Somebody's inviting you. Come partake. Right? So the divine nature is the nature of Messiah. And for the Kepha to say we should be partakers of a divine nature, what he's saying is the Father is inviting us through his spirit of righteousness to partake of divinity. We are made of humanity. Father invites us to take of divinity. And this is exactly why Messiah is the example. He's the example. Messiah was divinity and humanity. He come from his mother and his father. His father being the Holy Father, his mother being Miriam. So through Miriam, he's humanity. Through the Father, he's divinity. And people get this confused all the time, but I make it very simple like this. Messiah is our high priest. So he stands between us and the Father. Think of how Moses stood between the Father and the nation. Remember that? Moses, the whole book of Deuteronomy is Moses repeating to the nation what the Father told him. So Moses is coming to the people, okay, with the Father's words. Now, this is Messiah, though, the real Messiah. That's why Moses said, Yah's going to raise up a prophet unto you like me. Him you shall hearken. Talking about Messiah. Okay, so when Messiah is speaking to us, the Bible said in time past, Father spoke to us through the prophets. But in these last days, Hebrews chapter 1, he speaks to us through his Son, who he have made heir of all things. Okay, so when Messiah is speaking to us, he's speaking on behalf of the Father. He's the Son of Yah. He speaks to us, listen, by his Father's Spirit. He's speaking to us by his, when you receive the Father's Spirit, it's coming through Messiah. And Messiah is speaking to us as the Son of Yah. That's why when he was on the earth, everything he said very clearly, I do nothing of myself. But whatever my Father tells me, that's what I do. I don't teach anything of myself. Whatever my Father has taught me, that's what I say. He's the example. So he's speaking to us as the Son of the Father. But when we mess up, right, and we confess our sins, and the Bible says he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. When we do that, Messiah turns to the Father and he speaks on our behalf as the Son of Man. You understand? He turns to the Father representing man and he says, I am on, it's my blood for them, my blood for that man, my blood for that woman. And he speaks on behalf of us as the Son of Man. Okay? When he speaks to us, he's speaking on behalf of the Father as the Son of Father, Son of Yah. When he speaks to Father, he's speaking on our behalf as the Son of Man. So he's asking us, Kepha that is, to be partakers of the spiritual divine nature that Father sends through Messiah when he speaks to us. Does that make sense, brethren? So when we read his word and we study his word, and I hope you are doing that Bible reading. Where am I now? I am in Matthew and Exodus. That's where I'm at right now. This is my second month. Started in April. This is May. I'm in Matthew and Exodus. And and I'm close to the end of Exodus. and the end of Matthew. That's where I'm at. So I don't know where y'all are, but I hope you all are reading your word. And so that next year we get to March by the grace of the Most High, and we could all celebrate how not only it's going to be a new year, but we read another, we read the word. We read through the word. Praise the Most High. I hope I'll be praying for y'all. Hopefully y'all pray for me. We all be successful in this endeavor. So that when we read his word, we are reading the words that the Father gave to his prophets through the spirit of righteousness. Praise the Most High, Brother David, through the spirit of righteousness. And so it's the same thing. We're receiving a word of the Spirit, even though it's on the written page, from the Father through Messiah. Okay, to be partakers of a divine nature. As I said, it's more than just black printed words or red printed words on a page. It's more than that. It's deeper than that. And you can't even, and I can't even fathom how deep it is, really. But the Father uses his word to guide our steps in the way we should go. I know many times, I can't remember every word from Genesis 1:1 to Revelation 22:21, I'm sorry. I can't remember every word in between those two places, except when the Father brings it to my mind, then I remember it. And many times he has done that. And that's what I'm saying to you all. Keep reading his word. You may not think you remembered until the day you need it, until the day he calls you to speak it, until the day you have to say it to somebody, maybe in jail, maybe in trial, maybe in a witnessing on the street. You just never know. You have his word in your heart, and he will bring it back to your tongue because you were already ready. You stored it up in there. See? And you may not remember it, but he knows how to bring it back to you because you're ready. See that? Praise the Most High. So now Romans chapter 8, again, that the righteousness of the Lord, verse 4, that the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. For they that are after, watch this now, this is very important. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Verse 7, because the carnal mind is enmity against Yah. For it, that is the carnal mind, is not subject to the law of Yah, neither indeed can be. The carnal mind cannot be subject to Yah's law. Yah is commanding us to obedience. They that keep the commandments of Yah and the testimony of Messiah Yahushua. The carnal mind cannot do it because the carnal mind is relying on human nature. If we learn and trust in human nature, you know what that makes us? Our own gods. That makes us our own gods. Okay? I was reading this book that one good friend of mine, she's a Dominican, and she's teaching me through Zoom. She was teaching me Spanish, and she gave me this book to read, and it's called The Four Decisions, right? And I didn't know it because I'm reading Spanish, right? So I'm reading, and as I'm learning Spanish, I get to realize that this book, this Spanish book she gave me to learn English, to learn Spanish, is a dude writing this book that thinks he can control everything himself and thinking that God is in him and he can control everything. And I told her, I said, do you realize what this book is? And she said, yes. She said, we do have that power. Now, this girl, she's a friend of mine. Like I said, she's Dominican. She's Roman Catholic. And she is pretty religious, Roman Catholic. She goes to mass and all that. So she believes, she doesn't know what I know, right? But she believes she says in Jesus Christ. So I said to her, you really believe that you can control everything within yourself and that you have the power to save yourself, as this man said? And she said, yes. So I said, then what is the purpose of Jesus Christ? And she was quiet. And she said, I never thought of that. I said, yeah, you should think about it. This man's a fool, I told her. I said, his Spanish is eloquent, but he's a fool. He's an idiot. I said, you can't save yourself when you don't need Jesus Christ. And again, I bring that up to say this to y'all. If we had the power to obey Yah's law without the spirit of perfect righteousness, what do we need Christ for? Why would he have to have paid the penalty for sin for us to receive? this righteousness if we are able to obey without it? See, that's a question we need to ask. And there are many people that reject the whole New Testament, Messiah and everything. I know it sounds crazy, but people do that. I've seen, people have told me, you know, I only believe in Genesis. I only believe in the books of Moses. I mean, I've heard Israelites by blood say that. And that's just an ignorance because they just don't understand everything that we just went through. They just don't understand it because and again, this brings me back to what we were talking about. We're talking about mind control. So now look, all of us have been influenced. Our minds, the way we think, have been influenced by several factors. You've been influenced by how you were raised. All of us have. Okay? That's something that everybody has to, I feel like everybody, if they want to be real, should admit. All of us are influenced by how we were raised, and that's for good or for bad. We're influenced by where we were raised. What country, what city, what town. We're influenced by that. How the people think around us influences how we begin to think. We're influenced how we were taught in school. We're influenced, right, by how we talk. Because we're taught from little kids in the school, especially in the United States, in a public school. You're taught and you're influenced by your religious experience as a child. That's why the Roman Catholic Church and the SDA Church, they want you to put your kids in their schools when they're little, because they can control and they can mold the minds of those kids no matter what's going on in the home. And I've seen that. Okay. So we are all influenced by these things. We're also influenced by our history, by our not only biological bloodline, but also the history of our people. We're all influenced by that. I once saw a documentary where this Caucasian woman went to West Africa. And she went back like she wanted to live like the natives. Like she went back in the woods, in the countryside, where they will still live in huts. Now, West Africa is extremely developed. And you know, sometimes they want to make it think like people live in huts all over there. But no, it's extremely developed. It's very modern, just like New York City or any place else. But they still have people that live in the deep country, just like here, except here we call them rednecks. Well, over there, they got people in the deep country too. So she went back into the deep country of Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. And they still was living in huts, and they still had a village back there. And she slept outside and under a net, you know, and they had a celebration. And brethren, when they did this celebration, the way they were dancing, it's like you might see over here. You might see over here with the brothers and sisters that dance over here. And the brothers and sisters that do it over here didn't see that over there. But yet that's where it came from. You understand? The habits they had, the way they dance, the way they move, almost exactly the same as the brethren over here that might be dancing to James Brown or something like that. You see what I'm saying? So that's just history. That's just who we are, how we evolved, where we came from. That influences us, whether we realize it or not. Now, with all of that, the most influential things along with those things is the media. And the media and religion. So what, again, I mentioned you being raised in the church or being influenced by a church. That's going to influence how you think. And the media, whose whole job is to influence how you think. Everything about it. Matter of fact, in Nazi Germany, I once did a semester at college just studying Nazi Germany. It was, we studied everything about how Hitler came to power, where he came from, and how it was started, and all of those things. Well, in Nazi Germany, they had a man named Joseph Goebbels, his title was Minister of Propaganda. That was his title, Minister of Propaganda. And his job was to influence the movie industry in Germany, the newspapers, the churches, to bring a message from the government, which was led by Hitler, to the common people, which is the German people. And so every movie, every musician, all the churches' pulpits, the newspapers, they didn't, and the radio, they didn't have television, they didn't have internet at that time. But all of those things, they had messages that Goebbels, from Hitler and from that crew, his leadership, was bringing to the people. So that it took just a few years for the people to be completely controlled by everything that Hitler wanted them to be controlled. And one of the things he controlled them, he said he was the Führer. They thought of him as almost deified him. That was all through media. Okay. And he was the minister of propaganda. On the United States side, the United States government at that same time, they hired a Hollywood producer named Frank Capra. Frank Capra had already produced a movie that is also another mind control movie that people watch all the way to this day. You know what that movie is that people watch? The Frank Capra. They call it a classic. It's a Wonderful Life. You ever heard that one? It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart, and I forgot the other one. I think Pam Paula Weed or somebody. That was Frank Capra. Okay, so they hired him. The government hired him to create movies. The movies were called, there was a series of them. They were called Why We Fight. I got the series. It's so old. It's on VHS tape. But it's a series of movies of Why We Fight. And what they did is they showed these movies to the military, to the soldiers, to get them riled up, and to hate Hitler, to hate Hirohito, to hate the Italian prime minister, chancellor, to hate Mussolini. To believe that these people were devils and they needed to be killed. And so that was the mindset. And it was all based, and it was in a cartoon form. Frank Capra did everything. The Why We Fight, a lot of it was in cartoon form. Okay. And they made all the American people look so happy, even though black men were being strung up in the South at that time. They made us look all so happy and content, and we had to go save the world from these devils that was taking it over. And so that's what they going back and forth, that propaganda. Okay. To this day, all the media is propaganda. Okay. It's propaganda. So we talk about the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement. Okay. And most of us can go back to, when you think of the civil rights movement, with most people, you think of Martin Luther King. Now, there were people fighting for what's called civil rights, or fighting for black people's rights before Martin Luther King. There was W.E.B. Du Bois, there was Marcus Garvey, even Elijah Muhammad was way before Martin Luther King. But we think of Martin Luther King. Why? Because Martin Luther King did the nonviolent movement, right? And so what they did, they boycotted the buses in Montgomery, Alabama, causing them to allow, people to sit wherever they want on the bus. They did this it took a year for them to be able to sit on the bus where they wanted to. A year, nonviolent, right? So the media, actually, there was a man named Stephen Currier, from what Malcolm X reported, that paid all of them, all of these Sunday church people, all this money to be nonviolent and support them in their travels to do this nonviolent movement. Okay. Why? Because they was afraid that there would be a Malcolm X who would do it another way. Okay. So they planned all of this. If you notice, if you watch the videos, the films of those those marches from like 60 years ago, 60 years ago now, you'll notice the signs. Notice the signs they're carrying. They're perfectly printed. It's professionally done. I'm not saying that people weren't, capable of doing that, but that was paid for. That was paid for. All the speeches you heard the day that Martin Luther King, even his "I Have a Dream" speech, was approved by the government. If you notice, James Baldwin didn't speak at that rally. He did not speak in Washington, D.C. because he would not speak what they wrote for him to speak. As a matter of fact, Brother Lewis, who just recently died, he spoke and he had a hard time. They were wrestling with him because they gave him a speech and he did not want to speak the prepared speech. But Martin Luther King, the elders, John Lewis, he respected them and they suggested that he just read the prepared speech. It was all propaganda. When Martin Luther King broke away from reading their prepared speeches and their propaganda, and he started to speak his own mind and his own conscience, they killed him. Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam was funded by the same man that funded the Ku Klux Klan. His name was Hunt. He was a billionaire at the time, a Texas oil baron. He funded Elijah Muhammad's movement. He also funded the Ku Klux Klan. Why? Control. Elijah Muhammad had a religious movement. He and Malcolm X actually split over the death of the brothers that got shot in Los Angeles in 1962. These brothers was doing nothing but minding their business, and somebody said they were bringing clothes into a mosque. They would collect clothes and bring them into a mosque for brothers and for families. Cops, somebody said they were robbing. Cops came, didn't ask no questions. This is 1962. Started shooting the brothers, killed a brother named Stokes. Malcolm X wanted the Muslims to take retribution on that cop. Elijah Muhammad said, no, we're not violent. And that is what split. That and began the split between Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad, because Malcolm X was ready to do work. And Elijah Muhammad said, no. He brought up the nonviolent thing. And you know Malcolm wasn't with that. That between that and some other things that came out about Elijah Muhammad later caused Malcolm X and him to split. And when Malcolm X split and he started saying his own words, and he was going to bring the United States to the UN up on human rights violations, they killed him. And we know now the government killed him. We know that. They blame some brothers, but it was all set up by the government. Okay, we know that now. It came out. The dude made the movie Who Killed Malcolm X, the thorough investigation, and knew who pulled the trigger, knew who paid him, knew all that stuff. Everything in darkness, brothers, are going to come out to light. But my point, of course, is it's all media manipulation and control. Okay? Then what they do, you remember that it came out already where J. Edgar Hoover was scared and they had Fred Hampton murdered because of the Judas Mr. O'Neill. Why? Because they were afraid of the rise of a black Messiah. That's what they said. That's documented. That's not even like I'm not guessing. That's something that's documented evidence. They were afraid of the rise of a black Messiah. That's Freedom of Information Act. You can get it yourself. So what did they do aside from kill Fred Hampton and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King? What did they do? They set up their own black Messiah that they control. Reggie, so one man named Jackson, another man named Sharpton, another man named Farrakhan. Why are all these brothers alive all these years and them brothers were shot? You ever think about that? Why are these brothers alive? Khalid Muhammad, who used to be under the tutelage of Farrakhan, he left Farrakhan, still had respect for Farrakhan, and started speaking his own mind. He was murdered. He was poisoned, Khalid Muhammad. That's why you see I have his picture on my YouTube page. That's Khalid Muhammad. He was poisoned. He was speaking his own mind, speaking for his people. I didn't agree with everything he said, but I love the fact that he was sincere, like Malcolm X was sincere, like Martin Luther King at the end of his life, like Fred Hampton. He was trying to help his people, help the oppressed, the poor. And when he spoke his mind about doing it, they were murdered. How come Farrakhan's not been murdered? He ain't got that good a bodyguard. How come Jesse Jackson's never been murdered or even shot at? How come Al Sharpton got his own TV show on MSNBC? There's a reason for that, brethren. So now the latest Messiah, is Black Lives Matter. Not only that, Breonna Taylor was murdered, right? Ahmaud Arbery was murdered, right? The brother that cop killed in Dallas when she said she walked into the wrong apartment was murdered, right? We know George Floyd was murdered, right? And of course, at all of these scenes, you see the same lawyer. Did you notice that? At every one of these situations, the same lawyer is sitting beside the grieving family, the same guy. Brethren, once you've seen the movie a couple of times, right, you should know the scene, right? You see what I'm saying? Once you've seen a movie enough times, you should know the scene. The same brother's there. Every time. Is he the only lawyer in the United States? Wait a minute. And then what happens? You get these marches, right? Now, wait, let me ask you a question now. Let's be honest. Black people have been marching a long time, right? Like, we go back to at least 1950s. We might even before that, but we've been marching for our rights at least since the 1950s, right? So you go from 1950s, we're in 2021, you're talking about 70 years, right? And what actually has the marches gotten us? Has the marches caused people that hate us to love us? Has the marches really made us equal with the Caucasian people that brought us here in chains? Has the marches ended the ghettos? Has it done that? No, it hasn't. What the marches did was allowed us to pee in the same toilet as the Caucasian people. What the marches did is allowed us to drink from the same water fountain. What the marches did is allow us to go spend our money in their stores. You cannot legislate man's laws and take hatred out of a man's heart. Only Yah's spirit can do that. You cannot create man's laws and take greed out of the power structure. Only the spirit of Yah can do that. You could not create man-made white Jesus and save somebody. Only the spirit of Yah can do that. So now, Black Lives Matter, marching all over the place. Do you know they collect money? Do you know that Black Lives Matter collects money from all over the world? I'm talking about literally millions of people giving money every month. Let's think about this for a second. Let's say there's 1 million people that give Black Lives Matter $1 every month. And I'm telling you, it's more than that. But let's say it was that. That's $1 million a month. And the donations go higher when somebody gets killed, right? So when a George Floyd gets killed, Black Lives Matter shows up with their Black Lives Matter, and they get all these young people out there all hyped. People send money to this little core group of 3 women. That's Black Lives Matter, y'all. And the chapter send money, and one of them just bought themselves a $3 million mansion, $2 or $3 million. And none of the victims' families. There's one woman who was bringing it out. She ain't seen no money. She's scrambling to bury her dead son that the cops killed in California. And Black Lives Matter woman buying $1 million mansion. Because and was raising money on her son's name. We need to raise money for so and so. Oh, he was killed. We need to raise money and do something about this. So The media, if you go on MSNBC, they will promote Black Lives Matter like it is the Messiah. And they ripping us off. Why am I bringing this out? Not just to alert you to stop promoting, do not support these rip-off artists with your money. You doing just as bad as giving it to some Reverend Ike somewhere, some press hair Reverend Ike in some church somewhere. You're doing the same thing. Because they ain't doing nothing for us. Nothing. They just getting paid. So that, look, the first trader was Asatan. The Father gave him all the gifts you could give a being. Power, looks. The Bible describes it. Power, looks, position. He was the anointed cherub. And he decided in his heart, he wanted to take the place of his father. Why he did it? That's what the Bible calls the mystery of iniquity. We don't even know why. But we do know that all created beings with a brain, Father gives free choice. Well, he decided to use his decide, I'm going to take my father's spot. That was the first trader. And I'm going to tell you something. There's going to be traders all the way to Messiah comes. All the way till he sets up the kingdom. There's going to be traders. And the oppressed people, right? The oppressed ones, in this case, the Israelite people, the traders, the biggest traders will come from among us. Look what Paul told. Look what Paul told the people at Ephesus in Acts. Acts chapter, I want to say it's Acts chapter. Yes, Acts chapter 20. Watch this. This is the warning of the apostle Shaul to the Israelite converts, the grafted in converts at Ephesus. In Acts chapter 20, watch what he says. Acts chapter 20. And he knew that when the elders knew and Paul knew when he came to see them at this point, they were never going to see him again. He said that, and he knew he was never going to see him again. So this is his parting words to the people that he had wrote that letter that we call Ephesians to, that powerful gospel letter. Well, this is his final words to those people. The first church of the seven is called Ephesus for a reason. They were extremely full with the Father's spirit of righteousness. These were grafted in Israelites, not Christians. They were grafted in Israelites following the way that is Messiah to the Father. Okay. So now let's look at verse 16 of Acts chapter 20. We read from verse 16, and I'm just going to read down. Listen to what it said. For Paul had determined to sail by Ephesus because he would not spend the time in Asia, for he hasted, if it were possible for him, to be at Jerusalem the day of Pentecost. From Miletus he sent to Ephesus and called the elders of the church. And when they were come to him, he said unto them, Ye know, from the first day that I came into Asia, after what manner I have been with you at all seasons, serving Messiah, with all humility of mind, and with many tears and temptations which befell me by the lying in wait of the Israelites, and how I kept back nothing that was profitable unto you, but have showed you and have taught you publicly and from house to house, testifying both to the Israelites and to the Gentiles, repentance toward Messiah, toward Yahweh, and faith toward the Master Yahweh Messiah. Watch this now. Now, therefore, behold, I go bound in the spirit unto Jerusalem, not knowing the things that shall befall me there, save that the Holy Ghost witnesseth in every city, saying that bonds and afflictions abide me. But none of these things move me, neither count I myself my life dear unto myself, so that I might finish my course with joy, and the ministry which I have received of the Master Yahweh, to testify the gospel of the grace of Yahweh. And now, therefore, behold, I know that ye all among whom I have gone preaching the kingdom of Yahweh shall see my face no more. See, he's telling them they're not going to see him again. It's the last time in this life they will see him. Wherefore I take to you to record this day that I am pure from the blood of all men. For I have not shunned to declare unto you all the counsel of Yahweh. Take heed therefore unto yourselves and to all the flock over the which the Holy Ghost hath made you overseers, to feed the church of Yahweh, which he hath purchased with his own blood. Watch this now. This is the part. For I know this, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter in among you, not sparing the flock. Also of your own selves shall men arise, speaking perverse things, to draw away disciples after them. From your own self. That's how Judases come to pass. They don't come, from outside of us. They come from us. Here we are. Black Lives Matter. They come from us to draw away disciples after themselves. Here they come, Al Sharpton. Here they come, Jesse Jackson. Here they come, Louis Farrakhan, to draw away disciples after themselves. And you can always tell because it's about them. They become the focal point, not the Father. That's how we, who are Israelites, not only by blood, but through faith in Messiah, escape the mind control, because the first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me. That first one, brethren, keeps our minds always remembering there is no other God. There is no man that should take the place of the Most High. There is no man that should raise himself up so high that we should be trusting him like that. Only the Father's Spirit. When you really receive the Father's Spirit and you see a person trying to raise themselves up, I know with me, it chafes me. It bothers me because the Father's the only one that's supposed to get that glory. Only him. And when you see people trying to get it for themselves, you can know right now they fake. And whenever you see a major network promote somebody, walk the other way, brother. And I know it's not popular, but see, listen, was Noah's Ark popular? Was the Ark popular? The earth was filled with people that were living 800 and 900 years and having children all the way through. It was millions and millions of people on the earth. And 8 people were on that ark. If they were real, they should have been thousands of arks. They should have been thousands of arks made after the same manner as Noah's. Everybody should have been on their ark. But it was just Noah and 7. Those odds are the same today. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the day of the Son of Man. And when you see media promote something, you better question it. Question it. Especially if it has to do with Israelites. Especially. It's a trap. Listen now, 100% of the time. Not sometimes, 100% of the time. There's always an angle. And listen, the most powerful lies are mixed with truth. That's the most powerful lies. So that you're going to find some truisms in every lie. When the devil said to Eve, did not Yah say you shall eat of every tree? And she said, yeah, we can eat every tree, but this other one right here, because he said we shouldn't eat or touch it or we're going to die. So the devil didn't dispute that's what the Most High told him. But he brought his lie. No, you're not going to die. For the Most High knows that if you eat this fruit, you're going to be a goddess. And your husband's going to be a god. See, the most powerful lies are always mixed with truth. And they're always told to people who will be sympathetic to the true part. Anytime media is promoting something, brethren, go the other way. Go the other way. I don't care if it's Fox News, if it's MSNBC, if it's CNN, if it's ABC, if if it's NBC, if it's CB, go the other way, brother, because they are trying to deceive you 100% of the time. More than how you were raised, more than what church you went to, more than your ancestors, the media controls our mind. Why? Because we are watching it. We're looking at it. You understand? You see what I'm saying? Whereas when we look at it with the truth, in other words, and again, I go to the movie Malcolm X. In the movie, Malcolm X is in jail. He's still Malcolm Little. And Baines comes to him and asks him, have you ever, done anything that wasn't part of some con? And he said, what for? Like he couldn't see the point, right? Because he was a con man. So Baines said, come with me. And he brought him to the library. And he looked up the word white. And he looked up the word black. And he saw how white was all positive and black was all negative. And so Malcolm X said, who wrote this dictionary? It was a white man, right? And Baines said, yes. He said, what are we looking at this book for? He said, because the truth is lying there if you look behind the words. And that, brethren, is right. The truth, when the media comes at us, first of all, they're lying to you. So if somebody comes to you up on the streets, all of us have met, all of us have told lies, right? But there are some people that are just like major league liars, right? I mean, you know what I'm talking about. There are some people that are just off the chain, major league. They're lying because they're talking, right? They're people like that. And everybody knows, you all know people like that. And when they come at you, right away, they're lying to you. No matter what they say, before they even open their mouth, they're going to lie to you, right? You know it, okay? And so that's how we treat media. When it comes to us, we know it's lying. What is the point then? Well, for example, let me tell you what I thought when I first heard of Black Lives Matter. I thought they're creating this organization to control Black people's minds. That's what I thought. Then I looked into it and saw it was started by 3 women, 2 lesbians. And then I knew they created this thing to create an image to control our minds by how we think about these perverts and what we think about this organization. Then they put it in front of every dead brother that's out there to make us think they're working for us. Okay? And so I seen it. You can see it too. All you got to do is listen behind the words. They'll give themselves away. A liar will give himself away. You let him talk long enough. They won't give himself away. Just let him talk long enough. Okay? And so when the media talk, just listen and understand they're lying to you. What are they trying to get from you? What are they trying to manipulate? Because that's all they're doing. Then you'll figure it out. Because not only that, you have the word of the Most High. The word of the Most High is completely opposite of what they will tell you in the media. Completely opposite. The word tells us that Messiah is going to come on a white horse. This is what the word says now. And he's going to come in righteousness. He's judging and making war. Why is that important? It's saying to us that our deliverance comes from the Father, Son, Messiah. Our deliverance comes from Messiah, not from man, not from man's laws, not from Black Lives Matter, not from marching. Our deliverance does not come from these things. Our deliverance comes from the Heavenly Father. Now, to the world, I sound crazy. There are people looking at me right now saying, ain't nobody coming out the sky to get us. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to believe what the word says. Messiah said to the scribes and Pharisees, you shall not see me again until you see me sitting at the right hand of power coming in the clouds of heaven. And the man ripped his clothes. He said, man, he spoke in blasphemy. I believe what Messiah said. I believe this to be the word of the Most High. I was looking at another brother today on YouTube. He was from America, but he traveled to Ethiopia. And he was asking the Ethiopians, is Jesus black? And they said, yeah, Jesus is black. And so he asked them this. Listen, he said, Is there, what Bible do you read? He said, well, our Bible has 82 books. He said 82, because, you know, ours got 66, this King James. He said, well, what happened? He said, you know, we don't believe in all them, the ones they took out and all that. So he said, well, where does these 82 books come from? He said, this is what the Ethiopian man said. Listen now. It comes from the Orthodox Church, he said. The church fathers brought this to us from the Orthodox Church. Brethren, what does that sound like to you? He said, that's what he said. He said, it came from the Orthodox Church, from the church fathers. Brethren, what kind of language is that? What does that sound like to you? You know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like Roman Catholic to me. So even though the brethren over there in Ethiopia understand that they existed a long time ago, understand even a lot of them that they come from Solomon, even though that's the case, brainwashing is still there. They don't even realize. And the brothers, 82 books, don't even realize. Them books were planted there by Jesuits, y'all. In fact, I think the man even said Jesuit priest. I think he said that too. And the brother was the American brother was like he done discovered something. And that's what brethren are doing today. Okay? We got all we need right here. Read that book. We got all we need right there. Read that one. Read it through for yourself. Everything is right there in plain sight. The truth has been in plain sight the whole time. We just didn't know it because we were brainwashed by white Jesus and Christianity in America. That's how it was. So the truth has been there, but they've been telling us nobody knows Revelation, and you don't need to read the Old Testament. That's done away with. And oh yeah, them Ashkenazi may not be the Jews, but nobody knows where the real Hebrews are. They've been telling us that for centuries, until we decided to read this book for ourselves from cover to cover. And when we did that, eyes open. Bang. Bang. By the Spirit of the Father. And so now when I look at news or I hear a brother doing something, I can accept the brother. I want that brother to be saved. I want that brother, to continue. He's traveling the world. He may not understand what he's listening to or think he's lost something or whatever, but he's one of the chosen ones. He's one of the Israelite people. And so he's out there trying to find truth. And so I can listen to him and then hear things that I know are error, and don't worry about that because I know what the Spirit of the Father. See, at the end of the day, brethren, remember this. If you forget anything else we said tonight, remember this. Righteousness is going to win. When it's all said and done, righteousness and truth are going to win. If you don't remember nothing else, remember that. It's going to win. And if you want to be on the winning side, you need to be on the side of perfect righteousness and truth. As your conscience is pricked by the Spirit of the Father, that spirit of righteousness and truth is going to win. Lies are going to lose. At the end of the day, they're going to make the most noise, but they're going to lose. Okay, they're going to lose. So, I pray the Most High guide you in righteousness and truth. I pray that all of us receive the grace of the Father, that we might be obedient to righteousness and truth. I pray our eyes will be open so that when a Black Lives Matter or Reverend Jesse Jackson or Reverend Al Sharpton shows up, we see right through him or her because of the Spirit of the Father and his straight word. May the Most High guide you and bless you. Pray for me that I be faithful as I be praying for y'all, that y'all be faithful. All my friends, my brethren. Shalom.